Assalamu alaikum, everybody, and it's really a pleasure to see so many young scholars and very serious students of Deen participating in this 2 days short course on Rasmul Mufti. Rasmul Mufti is nearly 200 years old now. Well, it is 200 years old book, and Imam Shami rahmatullahi ta'ala died about 200 years ago in the 1836, 19th century. Amazing, genius and one of the great faqih of his time. With a huge memory and a brilliant intellect, and he's recognized as someone who actually, in a way, streamlined the idea of fatwa giving. And what is really amazing is to see that in 74 lines, not in prose, but in verse, in poetry, he's able to convey such a intricate, such a legal and an objective kind of science into poetry. That just shows you his mastery, actually, of this. And when we look at those 74 lines, actually, they are very much like a flow diagram. Imam Shami is actually a very contemporary of his own age, in the Mishk. And so he's really, in a way, presenting us a flow diagram of, particularly the Hanfi fiqh, and how a Hanfi mufti should use the content of the Hanfi books, as well as how to use all the tools that are at his disposal to be able to help people to connect with their Lord. Now, when I say fatwa is really one of the most powerful dawah tool, it is also one of the most powerful spiritual tool. I'll tell you, yesterday morning, I got somebody texting me. Husband and wife are consultant. One is a consultant microbiologist, other is a consultant cardiologist. And they say, our cat, 16-year-old, poor thing, is dying of cancer. And our vet is telling us to put it down, to give it euthanasia. What does Sharia say? I didn't have much time. I just replied to them, look, that is absolutely fine. You should do that. But they said, no, give us the evidence. Where does my Lord, where does my Rasul, where does my Sharia tell me to do this? Now, this is, this just shows you how people want have confidence in Sharia, and they want to see decisions and opinions based on the Quran and Sunnah. And this is why, the office of the Mufti is so important in helping people to understand their responsibilities and to, as I said, a spiritual role. It's not just a legal role, it's a very spiritual role as well. Anyway, inshallah, what I want to do is to, we selected Rasmul Mufti, one, because of his conciseness. It is actually a very short, pithy monograph on Shami's own Imam Shami's own experience of giving fatwas and how he would teach his students to learn the craft of fatwa. Craft actually means sun'atul fatwa, sun'a, the making of. And actually fatwa is really a making. It's something that you make, you put together, based, of course, on the text, on the mutun. And here, Imam Shami, he's a great Hanfi scholar. So for him, the mutun is really the writings and the decisions and the opinions of the great Hanfi fuqaha. So inshallah, so what is our purpose? Well, our objective, first of all, is to study the skills and the competences that are necessary for a mufti according to Imam Muhammad Amin ibn Abadin, okay? And using his classic book, Rasmul Mufti, in 74 lines. Now, he did the poetry, but then he did the shara, the commentary on it, meaning explained what he was saying. As I say, poetry is very much like a flow diagram. It is actually. It's a very pithy, shorthand way of saying things, but only those who've got a poetic mind can do this. really. So he's a man of his own time, and a great thinker, and a poet. So he writes those 74 lines and then expands and explains each one of them himself in his commentary called Sharhul Aqud, the necklace that really links together, binds together this. But when you reflect on it, the principles Imam Shami is covering are these three principles. If you let me just, so he's actually telling us what are the roots of the Hanafi mazhab, the original and foundational sources that discuss the content of the Hanafi mazhab. So he goes right to the source, the ta'sil, the roots, and that's really important. As I said to you, I've just given you an example of somebody asking fatwa, and they say, well, what is the evidence? And for the Hanfis, it's obviously the sources are our great teachers and our imams. And then it's the tahammul, or the methodology of crafting a fatwa. It's both a science and an art, where the objectivity of the fiqh content has to be balanced with the situational lived reality, which is spiritual and subjective. Now, what I'm saying here is, I think he's teaching the methodology of writing and crafting a fatwa. But at the same time, he's using the science of fiqh and also the sciences of jurisprudence, the usul al-fiqh, the qawaid al-fiqh, fiqhiyya. He's using all those, means, devices, tools that are scientific in terms of our Islamic sciences, but at the same time, he's also using he's also looking at the lived reality. He's saying that you can't just base it purely on those sciences. There has to be this very important balance of the lived reality, which is spiritual and subjective. And third point I think I see in this is the ada, how to deliver the fatwa to the inquirer, to the mustafti. How do you deliver this? So those are the three sort of overall principles that I think are being taught in Rasul al-Mufti. Inshallah, you will be the best judges to see how well I've been able to sort of summarize this. And so so the first point you will be, inshallah, today we'll be looking at is tabaqatul fuqaha. Now, Imam Shami looks at the ranks of the jurists, talks about those 7 famous, the mujtahid, al-mujtahid, al-mutlaq, the independent jurists. Those are the great 4 imams. And then the mujtahideen fil madhab. Here, we're talking really about Imam, in the Hanfis, Imam Abu Yusuf and Imam Muhammad Hassan al-Shabani. And then the mujtahideen fil masail, those who were able to look at some of the masails that were left out. And there's some examples there. The ashab al-takhrij, they are not mujtahids, but they clarify vague issues. Then the ashab al-tarjih, this group differentiates opinions between different narrations. The ashab al-tamyiz, the level of muqallid scholars, are able to distinguish between strong and weak opinions within the school. And then you have scholars from after 800 Hijrah. These were the masters of the hukams, the masail, the solutions in their own schools. And Imam Shami certainly is one of those as well. We'll be looking, and Dr. Ghulam Mustafa Beg will be, inshallah, covering these tabqatul fuqaha later on today, this morning. The next important part of Rasul al-Mufti is really talking about the sources of fatwa in Hanafi jurisprudence. And of course, right at the top is always the Majestic Quran, the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Kalamullah, followed by the ahadith and the Sunnat al-Nabawiyya, followed by Ijma, Qiyas, Istihsan, a very important Hanafi device, and then Maslaha, which is really, we've got to look at the public interest, which has to be really very contemporary, and then Al-Urf, wal-Aada, the customs and the traditions of the time. So these are the 7 sources of which Imam Shami talks about. Okay, so who can issue the fatwa? He then talks about the conditions and the qualities of a mufti, and what are the punishments for a person who's incompetent, who hasn't got the right skills, and yet takes up this very lofty station and very lofty office and pretends, to do that. What's the punishment for such charlatans? And then he goes on to look at the structure of the Hanafi jurisprudence, the usulul of the usul, the very principles, contents, and these are the Zahirul Rawaya, the well-known published works, including Jami Saghir, Jami Kabir, and then the Sayr Kabir and Sayr Saghir and Kabir and Mabsut and Ziyadat, the appendices, and those 6 books are the books of Imam Muhammad, and he actually gives a very good description of those, and we'll be looking at this tomorrow, inshallah, with Allama Sayyid Zahid Hussain Shah Sahib, a very prominent teacher of the Dars Nizami for nearly 50 years. He will be, inshallah, taking us through some of these. And then he looks at the Nawadirat, the rare rulings, which were not in the in those well-published books, but were discovered later on. The Nawazil, the rulings that are derived by later Hanafi mujtahids based on new inquiries, okay? And Amali, the dictations of the scholars to their students. And all these actually help to, create the contents of the Hanafi jurisprudence. So he's really introducing all those contents that are available to the mufti to use in his when he's giving the fatwa. Yeah. So this really is looking more at the methodology of giving fatwa, which is really very similar to the maqasid al-sharia, the very higher objectives of the sharia. What is the purpose of the sharia of Allah? Why does he want us to have this great, wonderful sharia? And it's about preserving life, religion, honor, wealth, and mind. Very simply, put, Islam is about helping people to flourish in their lives, really. It's about flourishing and successful and good lives here, because رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنَةً وَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ. So give us the best in the world and the best in the hereafter, and protect us from your... So those 5 maqasid are again the maqasid first talked about by Imam Ghazali in the 11th century, and then Shatibi and all those great scholars. It's really the very raison d'etre of the Sharia in many ways, to be honest. Yes. So the 5 objectives of fatwa, and this grounds fatwa giving into the into our living reality. That look, you can't be just picking out these rules and from the contents of those books, but you've got to be able to help the mustafti to be able to deal with his situation. And as a mufti, my job is to help you to cope with and to come to a solution to your problem. Yeah. Then he talks about the principles of jurisprudence, the legal theory, in other words, the usul al-fiqh, ijtihad, its different definitions and conditions, the fiqh, its different definition as well as methodology, and what is the role of the mujtahid in solving legal issues. Next slide. Imam Shami's 9 rules of giving fatwa. That's really interesting, and again, we'll be going through that, inshallah, tomorrow towards the end of the course, where we'll be looking at how he teaches how to do tarjih and so on, and about istihsan without qiyas, and fatwa will be issued according to the 6 books of the Zahirul Riwaya. So, we see the objectivity there, and in a way, yes, okay, let's move on and we'll talk about it later on. Okay. No, one slide back. Yes, the use of logic and argument, he says will be preferred in certain issues, and how utmost care should be taken when dealing with issues of kufr and apostasy. Is very, very mindful that takfir is not something to be taken lightly. You have to be very, very. It's amazing some of the examples he gives of how much care has to be taken in that situation. The weak position will not be accepted, and a juristic position must have precedence in the Hanafi law. So again, the stress is really, this is talking about how to use the Hanafi books and the Hanafi Mufti to give his fatwa, really. And then there are 10 reasons or methods of preferring one opinion over another. This really tells us about the depth of knowledge of this man and his mastery of that Hanafi, content of fiqh and encyclopedic knowledge that he had of the book. So I hope, inshallah, this has been a very, I galloped through this book with you in order to help you to really appreciate what we are going to have in today and tomorrow. Is something really amazing, and it just shows us that here is a man who Imam Shami rahmatullahi ta'ala, who wanted to, I think he was trying to standardize how you give fatwa, so everybody's on the same page. This is what is, I think in modern terms you would call making it professional, and it's good to note that world over Muslim majority governments have got Darul Ifta, and these Darul Iftas are now very well organized, highly disciplined, and they are putting lots of efforts in training their muftis to help the public, and they are using all the modern means, from telephone to emails to face-to-face contact, WhatsApp, all kinds of means to make it easy for the inquirers to get their religious knowledge that they are seeking and clarification that they require. But at the same time, I hope it's also increasing the level of scholarship amongst the muftis. We here at the British Fatwa Council are, inshallah, hoping to do these seminars regularly to upgrade and to upskill our muftis and to encourage others to actually join us, and also to actually really take opportunity to share and collaborate and cooperate. I think وَتَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْبِرِّ وَالتَّقْوَى وَلَا تَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْإِثْمِ وَالْعُدْوَانِ. It's really important. As an individual, you might be a wonderful mufti. You have a deep knowledge of deen, and you've learnt it for decades, and have been practicing it for decades. You're a fatwa practitioner, mashallah, no doubt about it. You're a fatwa practitioner. You've given hundreds, possibly thousands of fatwa in your life. However, what is really important is to be able to share that with others, collaborate with your peers, your class fellows, as well as non-class fellows and others, in order to get feedback, to improve, to share, and to encourage others as well. Collaboration and ta'awun is really a mutually benefiting process, and we need to do that. And I hope the British Fatwa Council will be there to support those of you who are independently doing that great work of deen and spreading the deen and relieving people of their anxieties, and of their stress, really. And this brings me to another aspect of fatwa giving. We've just heard how Imam Shami rahmatullahi ta'ala is trying to standardize fatwa giving, by really basing it on those great books of the Hanfi fiqh, particularly, you know, right from the mouth of our great Imam Azam, you know, so it's from Mabsut, it's from Mabsutain, it's from Jami Saghir and Jami Kabir, and all those, you know, first-hand information from those great fuqaha and mujtahideen. But at the same time, I think the, you know, the situation we are in today, we have to be able to interpret and to, you know, look at the living reality and be able to cope with the new challenges as well. And that can only happen if we share ideas, to be honest. No one person has got that kind of intelligence that they can do this by themselves. This is where collective work has to happen. This is where the Darul Ifta plays a very important part. It brings many strands together, many capable people together to discuss. And I hope, inshallah, when we are faced with some very challenging issues, as we are today, you know, a group of us can get together to answer those very challenging questions and to show, you know, the world that, you know, we are capable of solving problems and not only solving problems, but helping people to flourish in their lives and to be successful. I hope, inshallah, will enjoy this course. I'm looking forward to listening to our wonderful speakers. So, Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.